Hey everyone, a nerd named Mark here. Happy New Year. It's time for my first Toku video of 2023, and it's for Kamen Rider Geats episode 17. Before I get into that, if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, vastly approaching 900, thank each and every single one of you who have been subscribing. And going into episode 17, having that week off, so basically, almost 2 weeks fully since we really got to watch any Kamen Rider Geats, New Year's and holiday season is that. I gotta tell you, the pacing feels different now with Geats. Now that after spoilers at the end of episode 16, we know this whole entire thing it's been like a reality show, and like this episode, the pacing felt different. The show feels different to me now. It doesn't feel the same way it did the first 16 episodes. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's going to be an adjustment period, especially when I get into how the new structure in the game is this time, because it's not our standard DGP every round someone is eliminated. But before we get into that, I liked how this episode started with kind of like a reality game show style recap of eliminations and highlights of what happened in the previous DGPs. I thought that was really cool. We even got on our floating platform, all the cameras were still around, and they introduced each participant like it was a game show now. And we got to meet our two new contestants, because this time around only 5 people are participating in the DGP. And we got our first one up, which is Kamen Rider Naj Sparrow, who is Suzu Daishi. And I was like, all right, it's like he's gonna stick around. He's got a full name. He got introduced. And then we got another female rider who's Kamen Rider Lopo from Ganaha Sei. And we find out she already knows Ace. And that these two new people joining in were actually previous finalists of the DGP. So I was like, okay, this is going to be intriguing. But I feel like Toei found out how much we all loved Keiwa so much that they decided to kind of make him an idiot now. And kind of like a lesser on-screen character, because everyone else got their intros and he got his half off screen, like you saw part of his panel, and that was it. And even when, Sumire shows up, she's like, oh, there's 5 contestants, and Nan's counting, and then she's like 4, and then Keiwa has a 5 above him. He's raising his hands like, hey, I'm number 5, and then Sumire just walks into frame and starts explaining the game. So I was like, oh great, this is no longer the Keiwa show. He is no longer our main protagonist anymore. And I want to do a sidebar real quick. If you watch the opening, when they introduced everyone, they kept Buffa Azuma in there, but instead he had kind of like the Jamato vines behind him with like a static of his face and like kind of distortion. And I was like, this is intriguing that he's sticking around. Even though he's in this episode, which I'll get to because I'm trying to stay in chronological order, I have a feeling he's going to be playing a big role in this new arc, even though the game is totally different. So I'll touch on that when I get to some scenes about him. So we find out the first round has just started, and like I said, there's only 5 contestants. The game is to protect the city from the Jamato delinquents and defeat the principal Jamato located at the school. Cool thing about this, we got a nice 5-person henshin, and like I said, everything just feels different now. We have Keiwa kind of being like, Keiwa. Nan, while she's not doubting herself anymore, this first round of the game, from when we got all the comment stuff, which was, there wasn't really much, it was strictly used to really showcase how competent and how good the 2 returning participants are, Neige Sparrow and Lopo, because they put in front of Keiwa, because he took too long. We saw Sparrow show his intelligence to trap all the Jamato, and Nan's just like, hey, and he's just like, you're in the way. The main thing, there wasn't a lot of action in this episode. It was really just setting up the new dynamic for everyone and the new tone. So we're back in the lounge. We find out that they have to board at the lounge. They cannot leave. They stay there now. And it's because it's a full reality show. It's kind of like, it's literally a reality show. It's like the Real Housewives of Henshin, basically. or if you've ever seen like MTV The Challenge, when it was like Real World Road Rules Challenge, where everyone just stays in the same house and they go and compete, and their thing, like, it's kind of like that now, because they want to film their civilian lives, except they have to stay at the lounge. And we meet our new game master, and I got like he charismatically takes off his costume and suit and the mask and says his name is Shiram, 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 Shiram. Yeah, and I don't know. He's very charismatic. This is gonna go one or two ways. I'm either gonna love him as a character or I'm gonna hate him. There's gonna be no in between. And as of right now, I love the character. I'm usually really drawn to those charismatic types that are just outlandish. I love me. I'm a huge Kamen Rider fan from Saber, and I love Tassel. So, it is what it is. That says a lot about me as a person, honestly, but that's not what we're going to talk about. He points to one of the hidden cameras and says, the private lives of the Kamen Rider are now an integral part of the show, not just the fighting. And he points out that one of them is called the Disaster, or Disaster, and it's basically someone who is secretly tasked with grieving the fellow players. So basically, it's a spy, and this is why there's a lower player count. And I was like, okay, this is intriguing. So now, on top of 5 people competing for the crown, there's one person who is basically here to disrupt everything, and they know who they are, and everyone else has to figure it out. Now, I should point out, Daishi is super intelligent, super high IQ, very observant, and Lobo is just top tier athletic. So just right there. So automatically I'm like, okay, he's probably going to figure it out unless he is the disruptor. But I already hinted at it, foreshadowed. So now we got to pull it to the surface. I talked about Buffa. Buffa wakes up in the greenhouse. Azuma. I keep calling Buffa. Listen, same person. Azuma wakes up in the greenhouse. He confronts our gardener, Archimedel. I'm gonna call him the gardener because I can't. I'm gonna butcher that name every time I try and say it. And he questions, why is there, what's going on? And his main response was, I heard you're just dying to crush the Kamen Rider. And I was like, okay, I want to hear more about this. But we don't get more of it because it just goes back into the lounge, whereas Ace is currently away talking to management. They do the whole thing where everyone's set up where they're staying, and Keiwa gets kind of ousted because, why not? Because he was talking to his sister while Sumari was stalking him to make sure he doesn't, spill the beans on the DGP. And we find out, Ace is speaking with management, and he's in one of these rooms talking to the mysterious guy that we saw in the end of episode 16, whose name is Gene. And he is a huge fan, and he is a supporter of Ace. He even says he hopes he enjoyed the jet buckle. And now I'm like, okay, I'm curious about supporters. Are they sending stuff to them? Because does this mean every time Keiwa got the boost buckle in the secret missions that, like, he was getting hooked up from someone? Like, I want to know what's going on with that. Also, how did he get to that platform? Like, where are they viewing things from? Where is this broadcasted? Because it got brought up, and it was just, and Sumeri just says it's not on the internet and it's not on TV. So I'm like, oh, dark web. We got to take a little boat across a river to get access to this show, because that's what it seems like to me. And the main Gene is actually saying, like, he goes to shake his hand, and Ace is like, I guess. He shakes him, pulls him in close all aggressively, and says, he says, I wish you all the best in unraveling who you are and why you exist. And instantly I'm like, okay, something's going on. Like, keeping that arc that's the one thing that we're always keeping as the arc, one of the overall arcs that's been continuing, is Ace figuring out who he is and his mother, which gets touched on again later on. And I'm just like, keep it going. Like, I love this. But at the same time, I'm just like, we're spending a lot of time, like, setting up this new DGP from the standpoint of it being revealed to us, the viewers, and the participants, that it's a reality show. But it's like, man, I'm kind of missing some action right now, especially after not watching the show for almost 2 weeks. I had to wait basically a whole week off, and now I'm like, hey, yeah, come on, give me some oomph, give me some meat and potatoes for my meal. Right now I'm eating the starter salad. So back in the lounge, Kay was trying to convince everyone to say what their wishes are so we can see who would be motivated to be this disruptor. But Daichi, because he is so intelligent, he already guessed Keiwa's and Nago's wishes based on his observations of how they reacted and what they said. And I was like, I'm always a fan of intelligent characters that are like detective-esque or very observant. So he's instantly becoming one of my favorite characters right now within one episode. And I always find that very, especially when you find out what his wish is, he wants the memories of all humanity because he says knowledge is the ultimate asset. And I'm like, you know what? I want it. I want him to win. Honestly, he's big brain, just brainiac style, but I just like his character. But the pacing right now is taking me some getting used to. And then we know Ace shows up and he reveals what his wish is, and he wants to become a Desire Grand Prix game master. And I'm like, even more interesting. I want to know now. I'm not sure, honestly, from a long-term story standpoint, how they're not gonna be able to do a lot of action. There's gonna have to be a lot of dialogue stuff with this whole one of them being like a traitor / disruptor, because after the first 16 episodes, and I bring up pacing a lot because it does feel different now. It really does. And, they're all playing cards and they're talking about this and that. And obviously I just wanted to point this out because whenever I can make a reference, I can. Keiwa holding the Joker card instantly made a Blade reference in my head because Kamen Rider Blade, my favorite season, obviously. But I do feel like this whole it's I also saw it as maybe some foreshadowing. Maybe Keiwa is the disruptor and he's just playing the fool so far. He could have been told, hey, you're gonna be this disruptor, this traitor. If they don't figure out it's you have a chance to win this still. Because honestly, I don't think from a point standpoint or this and that, Keiwa would ever win. Which we're gonna get into pretty soon, because that's not even how you win this time. So the round starts back up and they're at the school. They're trying to find the principal. They're all running around, attacking this and that. We find out there is no principal's office. And the whole entire time, we see Gene watching his little screen being like, hey, come on, clear a secret mission. And we see a Jamato doing homework, studying at a desk. And Neige Sparrow says, hey, Geats, we'll go attack that guy over there. And he does. Ace clears the secret mission, which is just defeating the non-delinquent Jamato, and he gets the new buckle, which is like the powered build buckle. And apparently with this buckle, the form looks pretty cool, very bulky, not really functioning in my opinion from how bulky it is, but it gives you the ability to create stuff. So he actually creates the principal's office, which I was like, okay, that is smart as hell. Neige Sparrow obviously came up with first. Ace, they knew what he was thinking, and when he does it, you see the principal walking by. He goes into the office, and then Lopo just appears out of nowhere, attacks him, and brings him out of the freaking office and outside to start fighting. We see a big sequence of all the Jamato and all the riders now together fighting, and we get the fighting sequence panning left to right. So no panning up or anything, just like a side-scrolling pan of the action. It's really good. I love a lot of the newer filming style they're doing for some of these action sequences. Very enjoyable. But then we see Geats using some of the power-ups with like the hammer, this and that, and he does the gigant sword finish, and he wins. And I'm like, of course Geats wins. So when I talked about the game being interesting and different this time around because there's only 5, even though Geats won, no one's eliminated. And we find out that the viewers rating, there's a viewer rating for everybody. And basically, whoever has the highest rating by the end of the final round will be crowned the Deziety. And I just want to talk about everyone's ratings right now. So Ace, even though he won, is at 20%. Neon's at 9%. Daishi is at 40%. And Ganaha is at 30%, but Keiwa is at 1% approval rating. So like, oh man, 1%? I was like, that is ridiculous. But we find out that basically how you act, just winning isn't enough. How you act, like Daishi got a higher percentage because he solved the principal thing and everything else, and you know, Ganaha, Lopo, uh, attacked the principal, wasn't hesitant, this and that, got a higher percentage. So, and Ace just kind of dealt the final blow, obviously. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you don't need to win to technically win. And I was like, okay, you just got to be a fan favorite. It's a popularity contest. And I'm like, this is why Toei's screwing us with Kawa right now, because Kawa was so popular for the first 16 episodes. We were rooting for him. I missed him so much. So much. And so now this makes things really intriguing, which I'm looking forward to seeing how this changes how the characters are going to act. Are they going to put on more of a show? Because you think, hey, Ace, with how charismatic and everything, you think he'd probably be like, he'd be sweeping like 80%, But this really intrigues me. So more Azuma stuff by the end of the episode. We see him and the gardener, Archimede gardener, talking. And he asks what they're after. And he literally says they're trying to make their ideal world a reality. And we see this Jamato that he says, oh, looks like you've ripened. And it transforms into a human. And it was a Takeshi Gutokoji Shiro, Kamen Rider Shiro from the first episode. It ended up being him, and he still had some kind of like vine organic plant matter on his face and this and that. And I was like, interesting. Because earlier the Guardian says no one's come back to life before, like, or still been alive. So I'm like, so when their bodies are dead, he regrows them from the ground up, and then eventually they can transform back into their human forms, but Jamato style. I don't know. Really intriguing. And we end with a new DGP rule, which says one player has been designated the Desire Star. Provided they survive unmasked until the final round, they may seize the crown of Desire for themselves. And I was like, damn. I think that shit's good. Real good. I do like a lot of the new elements that they are implementing with the new arc starting. I will give them credit for that. I am enjoying, like, the two new characters, really good. Like the idea of now we know there are people that are sponsors, there are people that are management, there are people that are supporters. So we're kind of starting to, like I said, if I had that whiteboard with the red string, now we have Gene on there as a supporter under Ace, who's obviously below Game Master and this and that, maybe, or maybe a side category, same level. Like, he can't control the game overall, but he can support characters they choose. And now I'm wondering, who is a support of other ones? Does that mean even though Neon's dad is a sponsor, could he technically be a supporter? Also, with everything that went on in the last game, you'd think Punk Jack would be allowed to come back as a character, because he kind of got screwed over too when you really think about it. But I'm hoping he returns, because I feel like after learning about his grandfather being higher up at the company and everything else, like, he's pivotal to everything, even though he technically got destroyed, but he was self-destructed by, Glare. So I feel like that shouldn't count. I'm just curious how that's going to turn out, honestly. But let me know in the comments below what you think, because I don't have too many theories right now. I'm going to wait until episode 18 drops to kind of give me some more context for some things, and then I can really start to theorize about stuff. But let me know in the comments below what you think. And like I said before, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'm getting closer to 900 subscribers here on YouTube. I appreciate everybody, and I hope you guys had a good New Year's and really safe. Let me know what you think of this episode, and let me know, how was your New Year's? Anything Toku coming up besides Geats that you're gearing up for toys? I know we had the movie over the little break that came out in Japan. I can't wait for that to kind of get released so we can watch that. But that being said, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.